Thank you for joining us this evening for the results of Winchester Student Union's Officer Elections 2022. My name is Tiff Burnett. I'm the Union's Student Engagement Manager. I'm also the Deputy Returning Officer for these elections. Firstly, a huge thank you to everyone who voted in this year's elections. Our voter turnout was 23.78%, which means that 1,902 students voted, which we're really pleased to say has surpassed last year's record turnout and is higher than our target of 20%, with all available officer posts contested. Before we find out the results, I just wanted to take a moment to congratulate all 19 candidates who ran in this year's elections. You have all done a fantastic job this year, combining both face-to-face and virtual campaigning, and you should all be so proud of what you have achieved, regardless of the result this evening. Before we get to the officer election results tonight, we firstly have the results of the NUS National Conference delegate election. In the election of NUS National Conference delegates, the number of votes cast was 1,593. There is one vacancy, and the quota to be elected was 50% of the valid votes cast. Therefore, the quota for this position was 796.5 votes. In the election of NUS National Conference delegate, there were two candidates, Rika Prashant and Ron. In stage 1, Rika Prashant received 1,459 first preference votes. Ron received 134 first preference votes. As quota was met, I can confirm that Rika Prashant has been duly elected as your NUS National Conference Delegate 2022. Next up, we have the results of the Officer Elections 2022. So for the results, I will be reading these out in the order of Student Officers, Vice President Activities, Vice President Education and Welfare, and finally President. A reminder that we use the single transferable voting system for our elections, which allows voters to rank candidates in order of preference. As such, each election has a quota, and often there are various stages of each election where votes are transferred. In the election of Student Officer, the number of votes cast was 1,618. There are 5 vacancies, and the quota to be elected was 20% of the valid votes cast. Therefore, the quota for this position is 263.83 votes. In the election of Student Officer, there were 8 candidates: Sian Baxter, Lawrence Blackshaw, Con Bolt, Sal Fox, Aaron Eugenia Buehe, Chloe Robbins, Holly Tate, and Ron, which stands for Reopen Nominations. Please note that one candidate, Jennifer Lee Osborne, withdrew from this election. In stage 1, Holly Tate, Con Bolt, and Chloe Robbins all met quota. Sian Baxter received 136 first preference votes, Lawrence Blackshaw received 132 first preference votes, Con Bolt received 302 first preference votes, Sal Fox received 155 first preference votes, Aaron Eugenia Buehe received 222 first preference votes, Chloe Robbins received 287 first preference votes, Holly Tate received 325 first preference votes, and Ron received 24 first preference votes. As noted, Holly Tate, Con Bolt, and Chloe Robbins all met quota and therefore have been duly elected. As 2 further seats are available in this election, and as no further candidates reach quota, Holly Tate, Con Bolt, and Chloe Robbins' surplus votes above quota were transferred to next preferences. In stage 1 transfers, Aaron Eugenia Buehe met quota. Sian Baxter received 65.75 transfers for a total of 201.75 votes. Lawrence Blackshaw received 23.58 transfers for a total of 155.58 votes. Sal Fox received 56.63 transfers for a total of 211.63 votes. Aaron Eugenia Buehe received 42.3 transfers for a total of 264.3 votes. Ron received 0.78 transfers for a total of 24.78 votes. As noted, Aaron Eugenia Buehe met quota and has therefore been duly elected. As one seat remains, we remove the candidates with the fewest votes, which are Ron and Lawrence Blackshaw, and transfer votes to their next preferences, along with Aaron Eugenia Buehe's surplus votes. Quota is reduced to 226.8. In Stage 2 transfers, Sian Baxter received 5.72 transfers for a total of 207.47 votes. Sal Fox received 9.77 transfers for a total of 221.4 votes. As no candidate reached quota after this transfer stage, we remove the candidates with the fewest votes, which is Sian Baxter, and transfer votes to their next preferences. Quota is reduced to 169.75. At this point, Sal Fox reaches quota and has therefore been duly elected. As no further seats remain, I can confirm that Holly Tate, Con Bolt, Chloe Robbins, Aaron Eugenia Buehe and Sal Fox have been duly elected as your student officers for 2022-2023. In the election of Vice President activities, the number of votes cast was 1,657. There is one vacancy and the quota to be elected was 50% of the valid votes cast. Therefore, the quota for this position was 825.5 votes. In the election of Vice President activities, there were 5 candidates: Emily Jane Aldrich Snell, Inayatullah Nasibi, Timothy Penny, Duncan Sumner, and Ron. In Stage 1, Emily Jane Aldrich Snell received 1,003 first preference votes and met quota. Inayatullah Nasibi received 100 first preference votes. Timothy Penny received 94 first preference votes. Duncan Sumner received 433 first preference votes. And Ron received 27 first preference votes. As quota was met, I can confirm that Emily Jane Aldrich Snell has been duly elected as your Vice President Activities 2022 to 2023. In the election of Vice President Education and Welfare, the number of votes cast was 1,663. There is one vacancy and the quota to be elected was 50% of the valid votes cast. Therefore, the quota for this position was 831.5 votes. In the election of Vice President Education and Welfare, there were 4 candidates: Dan Chevalier, Josh Greenwood, Rohana Mazada, and Ron. In Stage 1, Dan Chevalier received 1,105 first preference votes and met quota. Josh Greenwood received 223 first preference votes. Rohana Mazada received 301 first preference votes, and Ron received 34 first preference votes. As quota was met, I can confirm that Dan Chevalier has been duly re-elected as your Vice President Education and Welfare 2022 to 2023. In the election of President, the number of votes cast was 1,894. There is one vacancy and the quota to be elected was 50% of the valid votes cast. Therefore, the quota for this position was 920 votes. In the election of President, there were 5 candidates: Charlotte Baker, Sophie Bourne, Youssef Almazaki, Olalekan Saliu, and Ron. In Stage 1, Charlotte Baker received 878 first preference votes. Sophie Bourne received 546 first preference votes. Youssef Almazaki received 174 first preference votes. Olalekan Saliu received 213 first preference votes. Ron received 29 first preference votes. As no candidate reached quota, we remove the candidates with the fewest votes, which are Ron, Almazaki and Saliu, and transfer their next preference votes. In transfer Stage 1, Charlotte Baker received 88 transfers for a total of 966 votes and met quota. Sophie Bourne received 52 transfers for a total of 598 votes. As quota was met, I can confirm that Charlotte Baker has been duly elected as your Student Union President 2022 to 2023. The results of these elections are posted in full on our website. All your newly elected officers will formally take office on the 1st of July 2022. So that brings us to a close for Winchester Student Union's Officer Elections 2022. Congratulations to all the candidates for running in this year's elections, and thank you to all our members that voted. Thank you for watching this evening's results.